here 147 views, which I don't believe, but I was talking about the trends and the search statistics. If you look at it, it says January 9th, so that's over 2 weeks ago. And you'll see the graph again here that I presently did, and notice how this is the spike here, which happened at the end of the year going to January 24th. This is the spike, and also for radiation searches. And after I did the video, you'll see the decline, and I'm going to tell you why I think that decline happened. I'm going to change the parameters for the amount of days. Let's just take a look at the amount of days here. This is 30 days. So since the end of the year, let's say the weekend before the New Year's holiday is when all this hype and concern came up, if you recall. So it was around New Year's that it peaked. People were searching and looking for information. Then you'll see here, by the time we get into the second week of the new year, you know, people are busy, they're going back to work, and you see a major drop off to the amount of searches. Okay? I'm not going to tell you why, but I'm going to interpret that by the end of the video. Okay? Now, take a look at, I just did a general search here on Google. I'm using a Chrome browser also. And we have the latest reports on the news about the search term Fukushima. That's the topic in general. Canadians are buying potassium iodide in bulk. Well, if that's true, and this is being reported by RT, let's go back to the trends and let's search. Oh, they don't. Wait a second. Yeah, they do allow you to search for Canada. You specify the parameter of Canada right here, and let's see what happens. Well, if it's true, Google search terms is showing that people were doing their research again at the end of the year, which is more than 2 weeks ago, and they're not continuing to do any searches. So my question for interpretation is, did they gain enough info and they made up their mind and they started to make purchases for remedy, you know, pharmaceutical, if you want to call that, or natural remedies, because the report here on RT is showing that. Then you would have to ask, well, why are people not continuing to search? You know, do they think they did enough searching? Take a look at here. Now I've got on my other browser. This is on InfoWars, is Alex Jones' channel network site. It's, you know, you're familiar with this. I'm sure most of you that come here watch him a lot. He's well funded and very popular, very active, very prolific. They've got 50 people working for them. So this is an interview with somebody who was living in California, who's found to have very high levels of the 6 heavy metals as his blood was tested, so they're finding that. And basically, that includes cesium. And this was a lab test. But they're cautioning that it doesn't necessarily guarantee where the contamination comes from. It doesn't tell you the source. It just tells you that it is in the individual's body through the blood test. So what I've got here, the article went away. Okay. 2 articles which you would want to compare, because this one is from last week. It says new Fukushima radiation study will focus on West Coast kelp forests. And I want to show you the link. It's up here. Can you see it? It's blogs.kelp. KQED.org. I believe that's probably a radio station out there. Now, take a look at what it says. It's announcing that there's going to be something called Kelp Watch 2014. And key things are that the biology professor is Stephen Manley. And he's under the auspices of, take a look, California State University. That's in Long Beach, California. All right, so their work to look for radiation particles, radioactive particles, in the kelp along the west coast. So it's extending from Oregon down to Baja California, which is also Mexico. And they're going into the waters and they're going to be testing that, and they say they're going to report on it. Now, it continues to say that Manley did an earlier study, which is about 2 years ago. So I'm going to take you to that article in just a moment. But I want you to see something here. It quotes the professor, Manley, saying, if they can actually see the numbers and the commentary as to what they mean, hopefully that'll put them at ease. So you can already tell that the intention of this study is to calm down the public and to move away from a panic. Here's another highlighted quote. It said, it's sort of like having a large Geiger counter stretching the entire coastline. Basically, I'm going to have to do an entire video after this, I'm still researching it, on the invention or the technology of a Geiger counter, because a lot of people really don't know how it works. And I think that that's important so that we can understand what's going on here. Let's go to the article that was cited, and it's included here on this site, environmentalhealthnews.org. And it's telling you about the study that they did on the kelp off of Southern California. And Mr. Stanley was involved, Mr. Manley was involved in Cal State University in Long Beach. And it's very interesting to read this. And what stood out to me is that basically the title of the article says Fukushima's radioactivity found in California kelp. Levels spiked, then disappeared. So the important thing is that they are admitting that there was a spike, and they show that it was 250 times higher than normal. That means previous to the Fukushima nuclear disaster, the tsunami disaster, and the meltdowns and the explosions, the fire, they're admitting that the study shows 250 times, and the particle that they were looking for, the isotope, radioisotope, is iodine 131. That's all they tested for. That is the most significant thing for you to realize when you read this. And they didn't test for anything else. All they did was look for iodine 131. And they found it in massive amounts in the kelp. So you have to extrapolate and use your thinking cap. That means they didn't look for cesium, either cesium 134 or 137, those isotopes. But the reason why I'm saying this, I'm pointing this out, is because iodine, the radioactive variety of it, only has a half-life of 8 days. So they can easily look for it and then easily dismiss it as saying, well, you know, it's probably not that dangerous anyhow, so don't worry. But why didn't they look for the cesium? Because if they found that, they couldn't dismiss it that easily by saying it's not that dangerous. Cesium in high concentrations, which 250 times normal, it has a half-life of 30 years. So it's not going away anytime soon. Folks, basically, to get to the truth, like I've been telling you for 8 years, I've been reporting and talking and giving you my different perspective on things so that we all don't get brainwashed here. We're in this together. And the truth is that all this science stuff is misleading. You can't just take their interpretations at face value. You can't, otherwise you're going to be misled. They're trying not to tell you things. You got to read behind the lines, between the lines. You've got to see behind the story here. What's going on behind all of this is that they're not testing for the more dangerous particles. They didn't test for plutonium. And then they go on to tell you more recently that they're going to do a new study, but it's a useless study. They're also saying in here, I'll give you the link, but you read the details, and they're saying, well, we don't know if it's really dangerous. Well, we don't know if the fish that are eating this kelp are really going to be harmed. You know, it gets into their flesh, and that becomes seafood, and that's what we eat. And you know, we don't really know that that's dangerous because we only tested for the iodine isotope. We didn't test for the cesium. We didn't test for plutonium. You know, folks, it requires a level of critical thinking and skepticism to really figure out what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that there for sure is going to be a study that tells you, that proves to you that there's a problem. What I am saying for sure is that I believe, and I have concluded a long time ago, that industry, corporations, and government are definitely damaging the environment. In fact, I am very suspicious that they are experimenting recklessly because they have power, because they are corrupt, because they have trillions of dollars to do so, because they are just playing with technology that they should not have. And that's a moral call, morality. And this is about ethics, which they don't have. We've known for a long time that we ought to be humbled on this. Even Einstein said that. Ethics and the sense of doing the right thing has not kept pace with the level of industry and machines and the greed and all the reckless nonsense that they're doing. They just want to do it because somebody's making money on it. Now, if you don't want to think about that and you don't want to see that I have shown you the facts of it and what's being hidden and the truth that is the foundation of what's going on, if you don't want to see that, then I'm sorry. There's not much more I can do for you to be with you in the same state of mind. But if, however, you do and you have been listening, then I welcome your continued support and viewing, and please leave us any feedback that you feel like. Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you next time as we continue this research.